Enrichment, Enlightenment, Transformation. Rabbi Yisroel Cutler, the spiritual leader of Chabad of Cary, North Carolina, guides anyone who has been searching for a meaningful life and conscious living. Join our discussions about the mundane, our daily activities, and then infuse every day with a spiritual twist from the inspired sages of the Talmud and Jewish mysticism, which many call Kabbalah. We learn from the root source of all religious monotheistic traditions and delve into the symbolism and levels of meaning from biblical stories.
In our class here in Cary, as well as anyone who is tuning in, wherever you are, all over the world, and if you are tuning in on the live stream, I would love to have you contribute. In the chat box, you can ask questions or even just give us a hi, and I would love to see your participation. Thank you to Nissan Communications for making this possible. Today is February 7th, 2017. The topic of today's class is Trust Me. We will discuss the trait of trust in God. And I want to differentiate between trust and faith. Even in Hebrew, they're two different words. Emunah is faith. Trust is a different word. Bitachon. On the dollar bill it says, ever think about that? Trust versus faith? What would be the difference in the dollar bill? God we trust. Faith. How would you understand before we dive into?
Trust is provision.
Okay.
My needs are met.
Okay.
Faith is existence, like God actually exists.
Okay. So faith is so trust is more personal, you're saying, and it's more that your needs will be.
It's more physical, just
Okay.
physical needs. That God is actually good, not that. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, the existence is one thing, but reliable.
Yeah.
Faith has no reason. Just is or isn't. There's no reason behind it. Where trust, there's a reason behind it.
So
I
there's more to
trust
tell.
you because of these events.
Well, trust in human relationships, but when you go to God, it definitely takes faith to have trust. But trust is one step deeper than faith.
I think I agree with him though, because God, you have experiences with God where
Right.
you over time you develop more trust because, you know, even though times were hard or difficult things happened, you came through it and you saw how it was good.
So you're saying there's got to be a lot, in order to get to trust, there's got to be a logical, experiential.
Even love is different from faith.
Good.
There's evidence-based.
There's evidence-based. Good. These are all good. These are all good. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the way in Jewish ethical works and whatnot. It describes this value as being important. We all know throughout life worrying doesn't do any good. We know that. Worrying about things that we can't do anything about does not help, and we figure that out throughout life. It's a bad use of time. Perhaps even worse than that, it's a bad use of energy. It drains us. Worrying drains us about those things that we can't do anything about, and yet we do it. We do it. We do it. It's human nature. Even though we know logically it's not good. But it actually goes more than it not being good. It's in violation with what Torah is asking us to do. Like, you don't think of that, but worrying actually is problematic in terms of what Torah wants us to do. We're supposed to develop our faith to a point where we are not worrying. Easier said than done. And I'm not here talking about worrying about things you can do. We have to take matters in our own hands and do everything we can. But beyond a certain point, when we continue to worry, there's a problem there. So one of the places this is described in the Torah, trust, is actually in this week's Torah portion. There are all sorts of incredible miracles throughout the Exodus story. We speak about the plagues often. We speak about the splitting of the sea often. But right after the splitting of the sea, there's another miracle that in a sense has greater connection to our lives today than the other ones. So much so that in Jewish tradition, there are many things we do to remind us of this miracle, this biblical miracle. And what the class will be about is the food that the Jews got, called the manna. How you asked about hamotzi. Tradition tells us that in the desert, the Jews' blessing was a little bit different. Not hamotzi lecha min haaretz, but hamotzi lecha min hashamayim. One who brings food, sustenance from the heavens. So it's funny you mentioned hamotzi before we began.
And today
So
is the traditional day to pray for livelihood based on.
So that's what we're going to do. That this story of the manna, I'll use the Hebrew man, and it's called that because when the Jews saw it, they said, "Ma, what is this?" That's where it got its name from. Ma, what is this? And the name manna stuck. But that's literally, it's what is this? Okay. Here is the story inside. Liz, why don't you begin text 1a? For those that are listening online, we are reading from Exodus chapter 16, verse 4. This is after the story of the splitting of the sea. This is about a month. I need to look into my sources. I don't have a Chumash in front of me. How much after the Exodus this happened? But the Jews brought a lot of matzah with them, a lot. Like we think about 8 days of matzah being a lot, this was a lot. So this story happened once the matzah supply got depleted. We don't give the Jews enough credit, by the way. We talk about their kvetching, their complaining, but going out in the wilderness without a plan for food took faith. So that's not even what today's class is about. We got to give them credit. And when they're kvetching for food, that's not kvetching. This is very different than the stories later where they're kvetching for meat or the other. They're starving in the desert. We understand why they're worried. So after their matzah supply is gone, and again, I forgot how long that took. A couple weeks, month. Maybe someone online can look that up. We know that the date on the calendar when that was. They didn't have food. They complained to Moshe. Moshe prays. Liz, begin text
They had
1a. Yeah.
Cattle, sheep, to say they didn't have food.
Eat only meat?
If you're rich enough.
Yeah.
Wandering in the desert.
Text,
Right.
right. Text 1a.
God said to Moses, "Behold, I am going to rain down for you bread from heaven, and the people shall go out and gather what is needed for the day, so that I can test them, whether or not they will follow my teaching. And it shall be on the 6th day that when they prepare what they will bring, it will be double of what they gather every day."
So the manna is a miracle, but unlike other miracles that just were like, I'm doing this for you, there was something the Jews were supposed to do as well. You know, it wasn't just the splitting of the sea or the plagues. God says, I'm giving this to them in order, lima'an, in order anasenu. A nace in Hebrew is a test, by the way. It's interesting how the same word in Hebrew, nace, is also, you know?
Yes.
Nes.
Miracle.
A miracle. It was one of the things on the dreidel. The nun stands for that. Nes. So Nes is both a test, like in the beginning of the story of the binding of Isaac. It was after these things where God tested. The word is Nes. We could just take a moment. Why do you think it shares the etymology? We know in Hebrew, if it shares, it means there's a connection. What do you think that would be? It seems almost opposite.
Overcoming the test is a miracle.
Right. So it's sort of a miracle on our part. It's when we have to pull from resources inside of us that is the supernatural eye, so to speak. So that's, we do miracles. We do miracles. So that is one. But in any event, when it comes to this miracle, God says, yes, I'm giving the manna, but I'm doing it leman anasenu in order that I will test them. What is the test? The test is that the manna was given each and every day. Why is that a test?
You would know it would. You would learn that it would come the next day too.
And what did it? Yeah.
Well, it was the next part, which is, and only take the day's portion.
Correct. And let's do what Rashi says. Rashi, on those words, it will come daily. Yom biyomo. Yom in Hebrew is a day. Each and every day. Rashi pulls from the oral tradition. And Rashi tells us, 1b please, we'll just go around.
What is needed for the day? What is needed for a day's eating? They will gather on that day, but they will not gather today for the needs of tomorrow.
Right, and in the Bible, if you continue, it talks about some people that will try gathering more, and the miracle was that anything extra, spoiled. Okay. What is the function of that miracle? What was the purpose? Again, this wasn't a one-sided miracle. This was what?
The invention of the concept of refrigeration.
Yeah.
God was given.
It's actually the other way around. Yeah, it's what would life be without a refrigerator or pantry? Scary, right? We take security in these things, thankfully. Thank God, Hal, that we have that. But we go to sleep at night feeling secure about what we have saved. And many things in life provide us with that sense of security that they didn't have years ago. Pantries, freezers, insurance, all sorts of things in life that provide us with security. And we know that.
It should make you show appreciation for what you have.
I'm telling you, think of days, years ago where you didn't have any of that. You didn't know what the next day would bring. But the story here was to teach the Jews something. It was to instill in them faith. What level of faith? That I have today what I need, God will provide tomorrow. It was to instill in them this sense of let's not worry about tomorrow, which is hard. But that was the function of the manna. And even today, where thank God we are blessed with pantries and insurance and everything else, that we don't put our trust in things. We put it in God. Yes, the things are tools, vessels through which our blessings can come, but we never put our trust in things. In any event, so let's go further here. Every single day they should gather for that day, with the exception of Friday. On Friday they would gather double because no manna fell down on Shabbat. And it was a scholar in the 1500s who, text 2 now, page 76, who pointed this idea out. Ellen, let's do text 2.
By not leaving any leftovers for the following day, they demonstrated their complete faith. Likewise, by not collecting on Shabbat, they demonstrated their faith that when they collected the previous day, that what they collected the previous day would last for Shabbat as well.
Right, and if you look in the biblical story, the same two troublemakers who tried collecting, saving over, were also the ones who went out Shabbat morning. Datan and Aviram, we'll hear more about them a little bit later in the Torah. They're the ringleaders with the rebellion of Korach much later. Okay.
They were just trouble through and through.
Yeah. They have a consistent kind of, they never get the headline. They're never headliners. They're always in the background. But they're there. They're there. We all have people like that in our lives. All right, not kidding. Joke. All right. So what I find interesting about the manna is that, as I said earlier, there's more in terms of the lesson for Jews than the other biblical miracles. We see that in a few ways. First of all, in this week's Parsha, God tells Moshe, we don't have too many biblical miracles that they were supposed to take a souvenir from. This one they were. Text 3a.
Moses said, "This is the thing that God commanded. Let 1 omer full of it be preserved for your generations, in order that they see that bread that I fed you in the desert when I took you out of the land of Egypt."
Did you know that? So they were supposed to take 1 container of manna, and this one didn't spoil, and keep it in the vault with all the other holy things. It made its way into the Ark of the Covenant.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've read it.
But we don't see, take a little souvenir from the Red Sea, take a little, there were a lot of things we could have done. We did not. What? Yeah. Why? Apparently this miracle has more to teach us than the other ones. This was an educational kind of miracle. And Rashi says, again, on this verse in this week's portion, what does it mean that they should have it for generations? When did it make its way out? When did they dip into the old vault and take it out? Yeah, next text, 3b.
For your generations, in the days of Jeremiah, when Jeremiah rebuked them, saying, "Why do you not engage in the Torah?" They would say, "Shall we leave our work and engage in the Torah? From what will we support ourselves?" He brought out to them the jug of manna. He said to them, "You see the word of God. It does not say hear, but see. With this your ancestors supported themselves. God has many agents to prepare food for those who feel.
Okay, it's from the Talmud, but there was a time later in history where they worked 24/7. By the way, this doesn't mean stop working and only study Torah. That's not the meaning of this. But it was that they would not have time to dedicate to spiritual pursuits because they were so caught up into their livelihood. And at that point in the story, the days of Jeremiah, Jeremiah was meant to take out the manna and say, just like in biblical times, God provided, so too today. Now it's true that there's a different form of that. In biblical times, the Jews could just sit on the couch or study Torah the whole day, and it only came from heaven. Well, once they entered the land of Israel, they had to farm, they had to plant, they had to work. But the message doesn't change. The message is, yes, we need to make a vessel for God's blessing. Yes, we got to do our part, but the blessing still flows through God. God is still the ultimate provider of faith. So the 40 years in the desert were like training wheels. It was a time where they had very clear signals that the blessing was coming from God. The goal was that they should remember that message even when they went into Israel. And on the outside, they would have to earn a living through normal ways. But this is not the only time that this story came into play later in history. Think about Shabbat. On Shabbat, we have 2 challahs. Why do we have 2 challahs on Shabbat even until today? Because of the manna that you got, a double portion. So that's why traditionally there's that tradition of taking 2 challahs, even though you only eat 1, because of the double portion. The tradition of having a challah board below and a little cover on top, that's because the manna had dew below and above. I'm saying this is, the manna had a layer of dew, it says below and above it. Why there's a tradition of having, there are many traditions associated with manna up until today. We don't see that with the other biblical miracles. That's something else. The salt is different. There's another one, text 4, about eating 3 meals on Shabbat, have to do with the manna. The most interesting is there are some who have the tradition every single day of reciting Parshat Haman, reciting the 3 or 4 sentences in the Torah that talk about the miracle of man. And it says it's auspicious for livelihood. So it's not necessarily, I know it's not in our Siddur, nonetheless, there are people that recite it every single day as a daily reminder about faith. I have siblings that say it every single day. So I don't. I have siblings that recite it every single day. So this story is clearly an important one. It was an educational lesson for the Jews. They should always remember they can trust in God. So that's what trust is. Trust is dependable, reliable. What you said about it being logical makes sense. You know, day in and day out, God provided. You can imagine as time went on, they became dependent. They knew that God would be there for them. You know the game you play in camp, the trust fall? Or, you know what I'm talking about? Where you have to stand and fall back, and you put your trust that someone will catch you. That is the meaning of trust. So there is a book called Chovot HaLevavot. It's actually one of the ethical teachings of Judaism. It's a book of Musar, one of the first Musar books written in the 11th century. And he has various chapters. He has a chapter on holiness, a chapter on of awe, a chapter of love, and he has a chapter of trust. And his introduction to the chapter of developing trust in God, he writes, text 5,
the essence of trust in God is when one has the serenity and confidence that God will do what is good and proper for him regarding any given manner.
So he describes in very logical ways, going back to that, how this works. And he says, imagine someone in your life that's always dependable and you know they're there to provide for you. How much more so when it comes to God? Because God has unlimited resources. Imagine someone in your life and he goes through step by step by step to develop a trust in God, not to worry, not to be afraid. Okay. And this is an instruction. This is one of the values we're supposed to have as Jews, is to develop not just emunah, faith, but trust. So it was a talk of the Rebbe where the Rebbe says, what is the logistics of it? Does it mean that I trust that God has a plan, or does it mean that things will be good? Because there's a difference between the two.
Say that again.
Does it mean I trust that things will be good? Or does it just mean trust that God is orchestrating things? Orchestrating.
Well, bad things happen to good people.
They do?
Good is a long, very long road.
Okay.
You still have to use good common sense
That-
and not set yourself up for disaster.
But that's
Right.
all it can, though.
Right.
The bad things that happen.
And what Dennis pointed out
Well,
now is that this class doesn't talk
I guess
about
point
the
is plan
interplay
is good.
between faith and choices. That's not this class. And no, I'm not suggesting at any point in this class we just sit back and, Judaism instructs us to do everything we can physically as well. In a medical situation, that means getting the best medical care. In a career thing, it means doing what's necessary. And that we always have to do that. But what we're discussing here is not to only trust in that. We trust in God. We trust that those are the physical steps we do to be the tools for Hashem's brachas. And once we do what we can, at that point, we don't have to make ourselves crazy anymore. We don't have to believe that that extra hour or that extra making ourselves meshugna is going to be the source of our success. It's, I've done my part. At this point, I leave it over to God. That's what we're discussing today. Not doing your part. You have to do your part. So our question here is, what does it mean? What does it mean to be able to accomplish what Rabbi Bachya ibn Pekuda writes, to really believe and have confidence that God will do what is good and proper for you? How can we be so sure? So think about the things we worry about. The bill. Does it mean I have trust that, what does it mean? That I'll get paid? Or trust that I'll be all right? Or my children, or health, or all of these things? What is the type of trust we're supposed to have? Define that. Trust that in this physical world will be the way I want it? I don't know. I'm asking.
But there's different levels of trust because we're all towards the same path, but there's a different relationship. We're growing, continuously growing.
So what's the ideal?
The ideal is that, just like in Judaism, is an engagement. We have to continuously be engaged with God, be aware of His presence, and continuously not overwork yourself, but is an everyday thing. You always have.
But
to
at the
work.
end of the day, am I supposed to go to sleep at night not worrying because I feel there's a plan? Or am I supposed to go to sleep not worrying because I feel things will be good in a way that I sense?
But
That's two different things.
I feel like that kind of speaks to what Ruth was saying because, every individual has their own connection, their own engagement with God. And so there are the people who are I feel like the Chabad talks about the ladder a lot. Right?
Okay, right.
So this idea that you're at this particular point, rung on the ladder where you can go to sleep at night saying, I've done everything that I could possibly do, and now I'm going to sleep well. Or there's somebody who's on a different rung who's going to say, maybe there's more, maybe I could have done, and maybe they go to sleep asking God, what more could I have done, or what can I do tomorrow that's going to make it better?
Good.
Rabbi.
Good. Yes?
Debbie has some comments.
Good. I would love to hear from Debbie.
I had to go and answer the phone, so I wasn't listening. So I don't know how many of them are about what you're talking right now. But
That's
Debbie
okay.
goes.
Any pearls from Debbie are deeply appreciated, no matter what. Louder.
Said
Make it louder.
She said, men's desire to be independent, manna makes human dependent upon Hashem. And then she says, like Pharaoh's lesson that he was not God, even though he had the Nile River, not acknowledging God's role in providing water. And she said, against our material desire to work and earn for ourselves, manna is pure spiritual energy, opposing the material. And she said, trust, we are giving what we need in life.
That's good. So we are given what we need to accomplish our mission, to our soul, overcome. Okay, so that's one definition. And I like, Debbie, what you said about the manna, to instill in them this dependency. One of the other ways we see that is when the Jews come into the land of Israel, just turning this off, God says, not like in Egypt, when the Nile provided you with everything you needed, now you're going to be dependent on rain. So again, it created a dependency, so to speak, a relationship. The manna did the same thing. It was to teach the Jews a dependency on God, that even when they do come into the land of Israel, and it looks like they're doing it themselves, they still should know Hashem is providing. Okay, yes, Hal?
I think there's two kinds of worries, though. There's a negative kind of worry that can put you in a hole where you withdraw. But I think there's a positive kind of worry that I am let's say, about providing for my family.
Yeah.
I know where I am today. I am worried about providing for my family. What can I do tomorrow? So the worry, if you look at worry positive.
Verse in Tanakh, happy is one who worries. Let me find that one. No. I want to find.
Feels like the antithesis of what we're talking about.
I know that, but I want to. But I think that's an important.
Yeah.
I want to mention that because I don't want anyone to walk out of here, with the wrong idea. Happy is, I think it's one of King Solomon's books. Is one.
Look how happy Dennis
is. No, but come on.
But sometimes we worry to the extent that we want to please God and we want to do His will, His bidding. So is that what you're saying, Rebbe?
Proverbs 15:15. Who can pull that up?
We've all turned our phones off to be respectful of the situation.
I need all my books in front of me when I teach.
That's his tools.
Say it again. What is it?
I think it's 15:15 in Anyways, let's go back here. There is a verse somewhere that suggests there's a good type of worrying, Hal, and you are correct. When someone wants to do everything in their power, that's a good kind of worry. That's why I said at the beginning, there's a distinction between our part and God's part. We should be concerned with a livelihood. We should be concerned with making responsible decisions. Yes, that's the good kind of worry. What we're discussing today is once you've done your part, leaving the rest to God, and even in your part, not going too crazy, second guessing and third guessing and fourth guessing and fifth guessing, so on and so forth. So I agree with what you said. We're focusing on after the fact.
Can you share that dichotomy again of the end results of trust? And your question, is it supposed to be trust that everything will be good, or what was the other one? What was the other?
The other one is that the same. Well, one is that there's a plan. I feel that there is. God is watching
for a reason.
This is for a reason. This is for hidden good. The second way is, I actually believe, I actually have faith that I will get better. I see the difference? I will get better. I actually have faith that I will have the ability to pay the bill.
But I think you have to, in order to really think about those two ideas, you have to take into account the idea of death. The child that dies from cancer, the mother that dies and leaves young children. Are those things, how do you come to the, it will be good, or I'm not saying that it's impossible, but those are the real questions I think that you have to answer.
And as Brian pointed out, why bad things happen to good people.
Harold Kushner wrote a book about that, right?
Correct. Kushner wrote a book about that, and his book was after he went through a horrific experience, his child, I forgot the name of what's the illness in which you age very, very fast?
Yeah, genetic.
It's he watched his son die in front of his eye, and it's that book though, again, never, God forbid, to ever judge someone who went through that. Never. Nonetheless, that book is not my perspective on things, and the conclusion of that book is randomness happens in the world and craziness happens, and stop blaming God for things. There's just craziness in the world. And the premise of the book is so many people have a bad relationship with God because of bad things that happen to them. And his premise is randomness, accidents, craziness happens. That's not something that I share. Even in his own life, he shifted from that point in his life to the end of his life. This was, as this was going on, these were his feelings. he shifted the end of his life in terms of
Where?
that. He shifted what he wrote at that time is not necessarily his view at the way end of his life. You can look that up,
Okay.
Again, that's one perspective out there. For me, it doesn't do it. For me, that gives me plenty of reason to always worry. If I believe in randomness and accidents, that for me does less. Again, not to judge. God forbid. God forbid.
And Debbie adds,
Genesis, darkness comes before light.
Yes, Debbie?
Debbie adds, she said, when your fear comes like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when trouble and straits come upon you. And she said that Proverb 15:15 more about fear rather than worry. And
Okay, so
what it says that the days of the oppressed were rich. That's what 15:15 is.
Okay, so I get the wrong text there. Thank you, Debbie, for.
And then
I need
she's
to still
saying,
find that. Still need to find that text.
and she continues, but he who hearkens to me shall dwell confidently and shall be tranquil from the fear of harm.
And that's Proverbs 15:15. Okay, so 15:15 is about not worrying, not about worrying.
However, she adds here, we must take care, gain as much knowledge as possible, prevent catastrophe, illness, and harm.
And that's the interplay we have between choice and faith. So let's go back to this question I had. Does it mean there's a plan, or does it mean I'm supposed to believe things will be good? As to the question, sometimes it is not. I don't think there's a contradiction. In Judaism, there's a difference between before something happens and after something happens. Before something happens, we want and pray and yes, can even have trust that the results are going to be positive. God forbid after something happens, when I say after, I mean someone passes away, that is when the narrative changes and the narrative becomes there's unknown reason to us, this, so on and so forth. But there can be this difference before and after. So let's talk about these two levels. What does it mean to have trust? What does it mean to be able to achieve this very, very important trait in Judaism of having bitachon in God? If the meaning is that things will be good in a way that I see, okay, how do I know that? Maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe there is a plan that I'm unaware of. Maybe I don't know what's ultimately good for me. And this is a question the Rebbe asked, text 7. Where are we up from the reading? Yeah.
What is the foundation for this certainty that all will be well? Even when there is a clear promise from God, it is possible that the promise will not be fulfilled on account of one's sins. So certainly, when there is no outright promise from God, every person must take into account their sins, for there is no righteous one on earth who will only do good and not sin.
So we never know what is a atonement for something we did wrong. We never know when there's a hidden decree. We never know when there's something we don't know. So how do we know that things will be good? Unless we say, as I suggested, Brian, do text 8 as well.
One way to explain this is that everything comes from God. When a person is in a difficult situation, it is not because the painful circumstances have control over him, God forbid. Rather, it is all dictated from above. Therefore, such a person can be completely calm, based on a simple calculation. If he doesn't deserve any harm, certainly God will save him, even if this salvation is physically impossible, for nobody can tell God what to do, and he can override the law.
But if the person's not worthy, or let me add in another way of looking at it, if for reasons unknown for you, this is meant to be, then you too can go to sleep at least knowing that there is a plan. That's where I think this is easier than randomness. At least knowing that there is a plan. This is good for me in some way. Whether it's a lesson, whether it's an atonement, whether there's going to be future good that comes out of this. So one way of looking at bitachon, trust in God, would not necessarily be I have trust that the results will be in a way that I want, but I have trust that I'm in God's hands. And since I'm in God's hands, therefore, I don't have to worry. Worry comes from not being in God's hands. And being in God's hands means that I don't have worry. There are many cases in the Talmud of this. I want to go to text 9, and I'll take the comment in a moment. Text 9.
A person should accustom himself to say, all that God does is for the good.
And that is words in Hebrew, gam zu l'tova. In some way, this is for the good, even if I can't sense it. Keep on going.
Rabbi Akiva was once traveling and came to a town, but he was offered no lodgings. He said, all that God does is for the good. He spent the night out in the wild. With him were a rooster, a donkey, and a lamb.
Today would be an iPad,
Sounds like a joke coming up.
No, it's not.
A wind came and blew out the lamp. A cat ate the rooster, and a lion ate the donkey. He said, all that God does is for the
So
good.
at that point, he didn't know, but he lived his life with this premise, I'm not worrying, gamzu l'tova. He luckily merited the end of the story. Keep on going.
That night, marauders came and captured the city.
What are marauders? I'm looking in the Hebrew.
Marauders?
It means like thugs.
Like pirates or something. They say there was a pogrom and the Russians came and killed everybody in the city, and he.
But this is not Russians. This is Rabbi
Yeah, I don't
Akiva's second century.
Somewhere, yeah.
Thugs,
Somewhere
yeah.
thugs, yeah.
He said to his students, I told you, all God does is.
So he said, in hindsight, had I been there, I would have been captured. Had my light been there, would have been seen. But the point of the story is not what happened to him at the end, but rather he looked at it as, in some way, this will be for the good. Either I will see it, I will not see it. He lived life not worrying, and that might be one perspective. So for the soldier in battle, with the bullets whizzing around, it means I'm in God's hand, and God's watching me, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. But I still trust that in some way there's a plan here. In some way it will be good. That would be one level of faith. Do you think that cuts it as far as the Chabad perspective, as you said? It doesn't.
You also have to be prudent and take action. For
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
the soldier
yes.
should remember to duck.
Yes, Brian, and I don't want to leave the practical. And I've said so many times tonight, this class does not mean that we sit back and don't take action.
Right.
That's not.
My comment was
but
going to be about Yaakov, when he was getting close to his meeting with his brother, right?
Yes.
What did he do? He split up his camp.
Correct.
Why? Because he thought, maybe I have a blemish, maybe I have a sin. Maybe it's not that he didn't trust completely in God, because then why would he do that, right? So he split his camp.
Maybe it's like, no, but it
but
maybe is
just
just,
in case,
yeah.
It was just in case he had something that was going to elicit a punishment or a judgment.
I don't know if you have to say that. Why can't you just say that he was taking practical steps and preparing for war? Meaning,
But he wasn't sure. I mean, if he had complete trust
he
in God,
tried all fronts. He sent
Right.
the gift to do appeasement. He prayed and he prepared for war.
And his
He
place-
he was taking practical steps.
Right.
I don't know if you need to say, maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe he was just taking the practical steps.
Yeah, but I mean, in his mind, he must have been thinking about all that because
Okay.
he did take all these steps.
But maybe you can be worthy, but nonetheless, the bracha still flows through this practical
Right.
step that you take.
But also in that case, peace was not a foregone conclusion. God didn't
Yeah.
say there was going to be peace.
No.
That was
That's true.
he
So,
was taking action to achieve it.
so one perspective up until now is I'm calm because God's a director, and I might as well just sit back and enjoy the show. That is one level. And that alone is a tremendous level of faith. That takes faith. It takes faith to believe there's a plan. It takes faith to mean I'm in good hands.
Rabbi.
But the Rebbe goes further and says, that's not the ultimate. The ultimate is not just this first level. There is a higher level of faith as well. Yes.
Debbie is saying about this. She said, our human dilemma, knowing when we must act on our own, as God is waiting for us to take actions, or knowing when to let God lead. This was Joseph's dilemma when he was in prison. And she said, the problem is passing through the fire to get cleansed on the other side of the fire.
Deep stuff, Debbie.
Yeah.
All right. So the Rebbe writes in text 10 that in his perspective, please read, where are we up to? Text 10, please.
This approach is inadequate.
Did you read yet or not?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This approach is inadequate, for the simple meaning of trust in God is not merely a state of calm, but that one trusts that all will work out well in a plain and obvious
The
way.
Rebbe's level of bitachon, that was not enough. It was not enough to believe that I'm not worrying because there's a plan. It says when we have trust in someone, what does it mean? They're going to provide what we need. When we have trust in something, it means that when I trust my insurance, it doesn't mean they're going to give me a nice explanation, but it means that they'll pay the bill. So the Rebbe is struggling to say that there has to be a deeper interpretation of trust. And yes, in Chabad tradition, it goes further. And you may have heard the Yiddish before. It's one of my favorite lines. Well, Dennis, do text 11.
This is illustrated by the following story of the
Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Chabad Rebbe.
The individual entreated him to rouse heavenly mercy for someone who was deathly ill. God forbid. The
Tzemach Tzedek.
told him,
It's Yiddish. How's your... No. Say the Yiddish. Good.
Is it positive?
Your effort was awesome.
How many generations in the Barker family were they speaking Yiddish? Several. It's tough. Trach gut vet sein gut. There's a beautiful song. Trach gut vet sein gut means think good and it will be good. And it became a Chabad motto. Think good and it will be good. So yeah, trach gut vet sein gut. We should make a song.
That'd be awesome.
That'll be good. And the meaning of trach gut vet sein gut is not just, you know what, you might as well think positive because there's nothing to do about it anyways, or it's a good perspective to have to weather bad occurrences. But the perspective is that when we literally think well, that itself can be a source of blessing in our life. In the merit of the faith, in the merit of the trust, that itself is a channel for good. And I know people will ask the question, does that mean no bad happens to people that have? No, of course not. We know that. We know that, and I give countless stories, unfortunately, about people who had tremendous trust. And after the fact, it's true. After the fact, we say, for reasons unknown to us, there was a plan. But while something is happening, there is this level of trust that is possible where, as the Rebbe writes in text 85, page 85, text 12b, please.
This means as follows. Trust is an introspective, soul-searching task. This type of effort is what brings God's kindness upon a person. When a person from the depths of his soul truly relies on God alone, to the point that he is not worried whatsoever, this triggers God to bestow goodness upon him, even if he is otherwise undeserving.
There is a merit that we get by having trust in God, says the Rebbe. True trust of going to sleep, feeling positive, not just there is a plan, but positive things will work for me. And the Rebbe points to several biblical stories. The first is Moses. We had a story with Moses where he sees two Jews fighting and he tries to intercede, and then they tell him, who are you to intercede? It's a biblical story. It's text 13a. And they say, who are you? What are you? Who are you? Are you now going to slay me as you slain the Egyptians? Moshe becomes frightened and starts worrying. I'm adding that in. And he says, oi, apparently it's been known. And right afterwards, what does it say? Pharaoh heard of the incident, and then Moshe had to run away to Midian. So the Hasidic spin on that story isn't just that Pharaoh heard because of what happened. When did Pharaoh hear? After what? After he worried. That by sometimes worrying too much, that's the opposite of faith in God. And this is the Rebbe being critical on Moshe. That doesn't happen very often. That doesn't happen often. But he says that And we have examples in medicine and other places where there are people that have this tremendous faith, and it produces results. It produces results. And obviously, scientifically as well, the optimism is good for you. We know that. We know the optimism is good. And yes, as people here pointed out, when are you supposed to be realistic about your chances as well and take things into consideration? And that's obviously a discussion we can have separately. But there is something valuable about trying to achieve, whenever is possible, this level of trust in God. And just to see how far the Rebbe went with this perspective, and I'll paraphrase this. This is a letter someone wrote to the Rebbe, and they were looking for livelihood, and they were a shochet. A shochet is a ritual slaughter. Many times the ritual slaughter would actually do their shechita in little small towns somewhere, because that's where the cattle was being raised. Here was someone who had to say Kaddish for a mother that they had lost. So they had asked the Rebbe whether they should continue and take a job as a shochet, where they would be unable to say Kaddish and lead the prayers for their mother. Let's read the Rebbe's answer.
14a?
Yeah.
To answer your question whether you should take a job as associate
Shochet is a ritual slaughter.
shochet in a town where no minyan is available for you to say Kaddish and lead the prayers, to rely on your two brothers for that.
I understand. Okay.
But which will enable you to earn a proper livelihood and repay the cost of your father's
burial. All right.
Our sages of blessed memory permitted certain things due to the need for livelihood, so it should be fine. This is specifically so in this case, as your brothers can say Kaddish.
There's someone else that will be able to say Kaddish, yeah.
And where you have the opportunity to repay the cost of burial, which itself is part of honoring your father's memory. In summation, there are reasonable grounds to hire someone to say Kaddish for your father on your
So it says, yes, if you have to travel. So at this point, fine, logical answer. But then the Rebbe says something. I've never seen the Rebbe say something like this. Continue.
However, I only write all this because I do not know your level of trust in God. If you're strong in your simple faith and search for a source of income, God will provide your sustenance in a place that does have a minyan, etc., and where you will be able to fulfill all your affirmation obligations.
So the Rebbe answers, if you're looking for a halachic, a legal response, yes, it's okay for you not to say Kaddish and do the job. However, if you are able to find in yourself a stronger level of faith, again, the Rebbe doesn't say sit on the couch. The Rebbe says get yourself a job. Okay, this is important. The Rebbe says, I think if you have that faith and you look for a job, you'll be able to do it in a way that will allow you to do Kaddish as well. And that was the way the Rebbe very much advised us to live life, with this perspective of trach gut, vet sein good. Be good, it will be good. When obstacles come our way, we're supposed to have that perspective. So in summation over here, the manna was here to teach us to have faith in God. Not just faith, but trust. The Rebbe would talk about the dollar bill saying, in God we trust, not just God we believe. One perspective of looking at trust is, I believe there's a plan. I believe that everything in some way will be good, even if I don't understand it. A deeper level of trust, the Rebbe says, that we are able to achieve, if not always, but sometimes, is really believing things will be okay. Not just hidden good, but okay. And that's the level of trust, bitachon, that is the ultimate. What's the mechanisms of that? When we are able to tap into the miracle inside of us and remain optimistic, even though there's floods of worries coming, that elicits a similar response above. We'll hold it over there.
But
yes,
even the Rebbe showed worrisome or lack of trust. He waited a year. Abraham, with his wife, said a sister. Moses, the top players didn't have what the Rebbe is asking us to have.
Taking action doesn't mean worrying. I think we're mixing the two.
Abraham was worried that if he didn't hide his wife, he would be killed. That's
taking practical steps. Why is that? Practical steps is not the same as worrying. Looking for the medical care, trying to dodge a bullet, that's not worrying. That's doing everything in your power physically. And that's distinct. That's different.
So it's like an environmental issue. Like, what's your environment? That should be what dictates your level of
in terms
activity.
No, there's things when we think we can do something about it, we should do something about it. We should do something about it. But when we cannot, at that point we leave it over to God. And yes, I believe that.
See, even though
Here's the other distinction. Do I believe that it is my activity that will ultimately be the source of my success? Or do I believe
Only your activity.
Yeah, only my activity. Or do I believe that God created a system? It's called a physical world. A physical world is we live in realities of this physical world. And therefore, God created a reality in which blessings come from the spiritual to the physical. And there's a whole stream. And even if the blessing is there spiritually, it needs a physical outlet to manifest itself. What is that physical outlet? My work, my endeavor, my using the right decision. Exactly.
We collect
Correct.
from the ground. Right.
And that's not what we live in. This is a physical world where we need to act and decide. And the Rebbe is not discouraging action. I don't want anyone to walk away with that.
Yeah.
The Rebbe is encouraging faith together with action. Yes, sorry. You had a comment.
I had a great definition of worry, and it is making rust. It's decreasing the iron, making rust, which is not usable.
Wow.
So
It gets in the way of things too.
it does.
Yeah.
It's like the gears.
Yeah. And I know myself, when I'm second and third and fourth guessing, that's usually a sign. Again, I did my action, and assuming I went through the right process. If I rushed my action, I wasn't thinking about it, that's not good. But let's say I did the necessary steps. And I spoke to mentors. I didn't just trust my own opinion. I went through the necessary steps, and then afterwards, I'm still second, third, fourth guessing. That already, in my opinion, I'm going too far. I'm going too far with the role of physical action. But any other perspectives?
I do. On text 3, when it talks about that to keep a little bit of mana from generation to generation, as far as archaeological digs and things like that, how come we haven't?
Indiana Jones is still looking for it. The Torah, this is actually in the Bible. When it comes to, and I'll hold it here with the online stream, when it comes to any of the most important biblical artifacts, they were hidden at a certain point in time. When the temple was destroyed, by that point already, they had already hidden the most sacred of the items. That's what Indiana Jones is looking for. So when you have the story of the temple being destroyed, and they captured a lot of the artifacts, the Romans and whatnot, the holiest items are not there.
Well, really, what I'm speaking about,
Yeah,
each
yeah.
generation, each people, each community, just like in Mesopotamia, like when you have when the woman's house, the woman was buried like in the center. You know, certain things in each household, we did certain things. So how come
Well, there's old spilling that's found in, when you dig in Jerusalem, you find incredible things today. There's so much archaeological proof for a King David, and there's archaeological proof for many of the instances. There absolutely is. You're asking why is there not more?
Right, because I read it, but I never read
The
it.
ark
jar,
and
each
everything,
individual.
that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about in the ark, I'm talking about each individual home.
No. That little bottle wasn't everyone to do. That was one. That bottle that they were supposed to put in the Ark of the Manna, there was one copy of that.
Oh, well, see, I thought it was each
No,
individual
no,
family for
no.
each generation.
It
That's
was
how I
one.
That's how I read it too.
It was
Okay,
one.
so
I'm
sad.
happy you asked
Okay.
that question.
Really glad.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be back here, same time, same place, next week. And a special thanks to Amnon Nissan for making this stream available. Have a good week.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.